Transit Connect brake booster reservoir. The reason for it is it has a little out port that goes to another section, because once the cowl and everything's in the car, you can't actually get to like where the ST cap would have been, because this sits way underneath. And the ST booster is a lot different shape, and this is a lot kind of wider. This is a little bit more like a pancake shape and flatter. But yeah, I had to switch out that, so I got that. Luckily that came from Mike over at Rebel Devil Customs. He hooked me up and sent me one of those. So I saved the ST one, and then I'll throw the ST brake booster back on, but with the Transit reservoir. Big moment, guys. The Transit van has a clutch pedal. That is odd for the Transit. I got the Cobb high flow downpipe in. It's the 3-inch. It's gonna be pretty cool. Big step, guys. The motor is in. I got all the brackets on and everything. So now I just need to finish hooking up everything, and then I'll start plugging the dash in and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's a big step. So I had to make a fuel line. So this is part of one from an EcoBoost Mustang, and it has the sensor built into the line. And the Transit, you know, would have had it right, the ST would have had it right here. But the Transit doesn't have it, and I couldn't use the ST line because the Transit's a lot longer. So I just ended up making this with part of the Mustang one. I cut it down and used the fitting actually from the fuel line from the stock motor. Then heated it up and pushed it on there, and then threw a clamp on just in case. But yeah, I think that should work just fine. Okay, before I got any further and put everything together, I had to figure out the shifter cables. So what I ended up using, because it's different than the ST, so I used, this is a Transit 6-speed from I think a 1.6 diesel in Europe, and then I had the Transit Connect shifter cables, but those ones wouldn't work straight out of the box because they mounted up differently. So the combo was, the left one is from the Focus ST, the right one is from the diesel Transit Connect in Europe, because the stock ST one, it was too short, it wouldn't mount up. Dad? So now everything works like it should. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. The only thing that's a little bit stiff is going into reverse, but it's not bad. The reverse lockout's a little bit finicky, but yeah, I am pumped with that. So I had to get that figured out first, because the heater box has to go in there, and you can't really get to the shift cables. And then I wanted to get it set up in here first too before I put anything else together, because I need to plug in the master or the slave cylinder, the clutch. All this other stuff is hard to get to after I cover it up. So now I can actually put the rest together and we'll be good to go. Okay, I had to get a bit creative here. So this is the Focus ST passenger airbag in the dash. So I took the Transit one out, put this one in. I had to put this one in because this one has 3 plugs. 1 there and then 2 there. The Transit one just had the 2 plugs. So far, you know, the harnesses are working, but it's a little tight because the Transit dash is a bit taller. But man, it's gonna be awesome. And then I'll put the Sync 3 system in and all of it. The Transit will basically think it's an ST. Everything underneath will be ST, but all the plastics and body will be the van. It should be really cool. This is my weird creation. So what I did is I took part of the Transit Connect cluster apart and then the ST cluster apart. I needed to put the Transit like gauge bezel around it, otherwise it wouldn't really fit in the dash very well. I was flopping around, so I ended up taking my Dremel, cutting the screen out a little bit bigger, and then it doesn't quite have the same plastic, but I was able to use the screws to clip it in place. And I think that's going to work. That's basically the Transit Connect outside and then the ST cluster. Alright guys, I got the cluster in, which I had to make some stuff to make that work, because I had to put the Transit bezel around the ST gauges. So now we're tackling the radio. So I want to keep the Sync 3. So what I am doing is, it's different for the Transit, of course. So I cut the center section out of the Transit radio, and then this will basically just be a cover that'll go over the top. So I'll make that all nice, and then I'll go over the top, and then that'll make up the difference, and then hopefully get that to fit in there. I got to figure out how I'm going to mount the display and everything, but yeah, that way I'll be able to use the facelift version from the Sync 3 system, and then put it in here. I'm also going to modify this a little bit. I think I might end up putting a few things in there, a few buttons in there, the climate control knobs, and then I might put the boost gauge in there. I'm not sure yet. So we'll just have to see how it goes, but it's coming together. I had to take the climate controls, the dual climate controls from the Sync 3 and make this work in this panel. So I cut this out with my Dremel, and then that's going to sit in there in the Transit dash. So it's kind of how it was in the Focus. So that'll be really nice. I'll have the dual climate control and the whole Sync 3 system ready to go. Okay, swapping everything over from center console. So I took the wiring harness out of the Transit one, and then took the harness out of the ST one. And then I have the ST harness here. We're running that through. I'm going to swap the connectors and outlets over. They're a little different. It's important to have the ST one in because it has the sensor for the key fob, and for the push button start is in the back part here. So I'll swap that over, and then I'm also going to move some of these buttons over onto here. So that would be good. Well, officially got to the first wire I had to cut and solder. So surprisingly, the entire fuel system cabling from the ST worked. I didn't have to change it at all. Evap, fuel tank, all of it, the charcoal canister. The only thing I had to extend, it's kind of hard to see, but I had to extend the wire for the ABS, or like the rear, I think it's the ABS or wheel speed sensor, whatever it is. So I cut the end off of the ST, and yeah, they're actually the same colors and everything. So this was just a little bit too short, so I just ended up using the Transit ones. But we're getting real close to starting this. So I got to bleed the clutch and the brakes. Still need to swap the RS brakes in the back. But man, yeah, we're getting real close to actually being able to actually turn it on and see if it works. Alright, swapped over the brakes. So the other car had the rear Brembos as well. So learned a couple things that are different. So this bracket is a bit different on the Transit. It's just ever so slightly longer. And then I also learned the rotors are different between the ST and the Transit. The rotor sticks out a lot farther. So if you look at them side by side, you can see how much more this part sticks out. But I was able to use the Transit, or the Transit bracket here, the Brembo new pads, and then I just kind of cleaned these up a bit because they were a little bad. And then it had a stainless line on it. So that's pretty sweet. So now I can do where I can bleed the brakes and then bleed the clutch, and then we're getting closer and closer every step. I think it's time to try to start it up. So I'll do the first start. I think I got enough of the things plugged in. We bled the brakes, bled the clutch, plug the battery in, and we'll see what we get. Okay, we got the Ford chime. Okay, Okay, we're getting really close now. I got all the front mostly assembled. I got the crash bar on. I had this kind of intake thing that I put on. Put all of the cowl on, and then this actually had to push back a little bit because I had to move it a little bit because I'm using the ST brake booster, which is a little thinner. But other than that, everything's fine. But yeah, no, we're getting close on the front. And then once I get this all assembled, I'll start dealing with all the wiring from the dash back. So the doors, I've got to run a wire to this. I'll probably just tap into one of the ones off the door because on the ST it's in the mirror, but on here they have it on the side. So I'll run it in there, and then I do need to swap the seat brackets over from the ST, from the Transit to the ST seat because it sits a little bit higher. Yeah, just little odds and ends, and then I got to figure out where I'm going to mount this subwoofer and amp. And then put the headliner back in, headliner harness. I'm going to have to do a little custom work too. Basically all the parts where I'm needing to plug the ST into the Transit stuff, it'll take a little bit of modification to do. Like the doors, I'm going to need to use the ST door harness. Yeah, a few other things, but for the most part, the whole car will think it's an ST, which is pretty fun. So still a bit more fitting to do, but this is how the bumper's turning out. So I cut out the middle, and then I ended up cutting all this out and then shaving it so that I still have kind of like this trim ring. And then I cut out down here, had to repaint the top half of the bumper. It's a little bit different color silver, but that's all right. The bumper is pretty rough as it is. I just needed to make sure the clear coat wasn't going to go anymore. But yeah, no, this is going to be really cool. So you can see the whole crash bar, everything kind of through it. So yeah, that's gonna be really sweet. While the plug looks the same on the Transit Connect from the ST, the headlights are wired up completely different. So I cut up this one off of the ST, and then this is actually wired in to the Transit Connect plug. So now that I tested it, now I'm gonna solder it all together, but luckily the colors all matched up. It's just a matter of cutting it and put it back together. Okay, so this is hooking up the door. So I cut the plug off this is for the back door. So I cut that off, and then wiring it into, had to run this back through, but this is the one that goes to the van, like kind of chain thing. So the colors are all the same, but I am going to need to swap out the door harness on this door and the other door with the one from the ST. But this will at least get me a good starting point here. So this might be a little weird, but I made an adapter. So this used to have a complete rear AC system, but since I'm using the ST body harness, I can't really use any of that. So what I ended up doing was to get some kind of airflow through the vents, was when you run it through the foot, when you have it on like the floor vent, it'll actually go through this tube and then go into here and then pop out this vent and pop out this vent. It's not like a ton of airflow, but I mean, anything's better than nothing. So I'm going to make I basically made a copy of that cover pan, and then I'm going to cut this and modify it a little bit, and then run another tube from that floor vent to that one. So this is just a dry air duct. But it was simple and it works. It'll be just fine for what I need it to do. But yeah, I figured it'd be better than nothing, having some sort of airflow through the back, and it seems to actually work pretty good. So I'm happy with it. I'm using some dry air vent stuff to basically hook up the floor vent to where the rear AC stuff was coming out. So here and then here. So the ST doesn't have the components or things on the body harness to run the rear AC system, which was a complete thing. There was AC lines under the car, all that. So rather than just completely delete it, I figured might as well, do something. So this does blow a little bit of air to the back. It's not a ton. But you know, I figured a little bit's better than nothing. So that side, I just put the cover plate there. I just mirrored it, made a copy of it, made another one here, and then ran this through the floor, and then this just goes up and then into the back. It works okay. But yeah, it doesn't move a ton of air, but it is, you know, it's something. So I'll take it. You know, it's just the little things. And now I can put the carpet in. So this is what I'm doing to get the ST3 seats in. So what I did is I cut off, I'm going to do this on all the brackets. I'm cutting the bracket off the Transit, which is just the same thing as the ST bracket, it's just raised up. And then I'm cutting the one off of the ST and then bolting it back up to the slider on the ST. So rather than trying to take the whole seat apart, do all the wires, the seat backs, all that junk, I'm just going to swap the bases and the mounts, and then that will raise these seats up enough. And honestly, like, these are barely welded in. Like, there's like 2 tiny tacks. The Transit seats are a little bit better, but like you can almost just beat those off with a hammer. Like, they're barely on. So this actually will probably be better than the factory welds. Actually, I had to weld one side on the back just because there was no way to put a bolt through it, so I didn't want just one holding it in. But yeah, that's the Transit Connect brackets on the ST seat. So then there's the Transit Connect slider, and then we got the ST slider with, you know, all of the stuff on it. And then we'll go ahead and throw that in the van now, and then I can work on the other side. Actually had to re-drill and bolt up the back side because I figured out the ST slider is actually shorter. Go figure. So I had to redo that one, but no, now it's in, it's solid. It looks super cool in there. Having the ST Recaro seat in my van, it looks awesome. I got the last seat bracket swapped over on the passenger side. There's my pile of all the ones from the ST seats. Got these mounted up. But while I had this off, I thought I'd show you guys something. So on the ST3 and on a lot of the cars, the passenger occupant sensor is really interesting. So there's a bag of liquid that's underneath like the seat cushion, and then when you sit on it, it pushes it through this tube, and then the sensor reads it, and that's what turns the airbag on and off for the passenger. It's really interesting how it works. And like this one is specific to the ST3 restraint module. That's why when you swap like these seats in another car with a different trim package, you'll get an airbag light because this is reading different. But yeah, it's really weird. You know, I never really knew that, and then figured that out when I was doing my other car. Kind of a cool little fact.